What's good, y'all? rlybeats here, and today we're going to talk about how to make a Mira type beat from scratch. This means we're going to go over the drums, the mixing, the sound selection, the melody, all that good stuff. I haven't done a video like this, so if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated by me, by you, by the community. It might stop natural disasters from happening, who knows, but there's only one way to find out, so let's get right into it. Something important to note, a lot of Mira beats, you might know this already, but a lot of Mira beats are pretty fast tempo. 167 is pretty popular. I'm gonna start with FL keys just because that's a personal thing. Mira melodies these days use a lot more dry sounds than wet sounds. Dry sounds are pretty in right now. Oftentimes, if you bring up that middle note, you invert it up an octave, it will sound a bit more melodic and oftentimes a bit more sad, or at least a bit more emotional is I guess what I meant to say. Something I like to do and something I've been doing a lot more lately personally is just making my chords into 7th or 9th chords. I have a video about chords you can check out, so it just kind of talks about that and how to do that. So I kind of just threw together some chords, chopped them up, used that rhythmic pattern I talked about. I expanded on the chords a bit, made some 7ths, made a bit more complex chords here and there. Added a few filler notes, nothing too crazy filler note wise, just kind of some notes here. I do have a sound in mind, but I am not going to use it just because I want to find a more dry sound, just to show you what I mean. And when I talk about dry sounds, usually there's not a lot of reverb on them. They hit like a mallet. A mallet's a great example. A lot of Lil Tecca beats, a lot of beats in general will use a mallet or just some kind of dry sound. I think a good example of this is V12 by Ian Dior and Lil Uzi Vert. It just uses a guitar one shot and then a bell. Let's see if there's any mallets. There's literally one mallet in my Omni. I put a bunch of Omni banks in just one file. Let's hear how this sounds. Yeah, that's atrocious. Plucks work too. I like plucks. Something you'll see in a lot of Mira beats is that he just layers a lot of the melodies. Another example of this is Smile by Juice WRLD and The Weeknd. I think that's a great example just because it's 3 different kinds of keys. Like there's an organ, a pad, and keys, if I'm not mistaken, that are all just layered together and they're playing the exact same thing. It's a good thing to keep in mind layering while you're making these kind of beats. So I found a layer I do like, so I'm going to keep that. So I found this, I pitched it up a bit just because I want to have it a bit higher octave. And this is kind of what my main melody is going to be. I think I'm going to change the key of the whole thing though, because I don't like it in this key. So I'm going to keep the melody pretty simple. I'm just going to use these 3 layers. I think I might add in like a texture lead. Scratch that whole entire idea. We're just gonna go to drums. For drums, I like to use either Mira kits or Real Levi kits. Cody kits work too. Real Levi drums are some of my favorite though, for sure. Pretty much though, for the drums, you do want to follow the bass notes most of the time, and you want to keep in mind, you want to keep it bouncy. A lot of the time in my beats I like to add an accent snare, and a lot of these bouncy melodies, they kind of have something in common with their accent snares, and it's this one specific pattern that I'm about to show you. So a lot of the time there will be this kind of pattern here, and this just creates a nice little bounce. You'll see how this sounds right here. So it's extremely common, so if you ever want to make a little bit more bounce and add an accent snare, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to make more bounce with your hi-hats, feel free to just add some rolls where the 808s are, or find points where there's bounce and you just want to create a bit more syncopation in that section. So a good section here would be right around here. I have some bounce going on there that I want to accentuate a bit more, so I'm going to add a roll. for the hi-hats, you want to keep it pretty simple. Just have a few rolls, nothing too crazy. Feel free to copy your rolls over. A lot of the time, you have too many different kinds of rolls going on. It can be a bit too crowded. And really, probably the most important thing when you're mixing is just trust your ears. If something sounds too loud, turn it down. If something sounds too quiet, turn it up. You don't need to cut out all the frequencies or do anything crazy. You don't need to perform surgery. Just have good sounds and level everything. Maybe a little bit of EQ slot here and there if you need to, but nothing too crazy. You know, just glue things together. For arrangement, since I don't have too many different kinds of melodies going on here, I think it's gonna be important to really play around with the different layers I have going on. So I think bringing the intro, I'm just gonna have this one layer, then I'm gonna have, I think, probably these layers, and then this will be like the main hook section, and then for the first part of the verse I'll just have it like this. I'm just gonna loop that back around. So that's kind of how my arrangement's gonna be. I think too, this is important to note that that's the power of having different layers. You can have a crazy amount of arrangement. Like let's say I had way more melodies going on and they were all layered. I could have the same melody play just layered. And some people oftentimes will ask me, what does layering mean? You're just taking the same melody and putting it in with a different instrument. So for example, you could have a piano and an organ play the same melody, and you would have that layered. So a lot of the time with Mira beats, what he likes to do, or what I've noticed that he likes to do, is he'll have the first section of the hook come in, and there won't be the kick, and then the kick will come in into the second part of the hook, and this just picks up the energy a lot, just because your 808's hitting harder and everything's just hitting harder. Having this kind of cut in Internet Money and Mira type beats is really common. A good way to signify that the hook is ended and the verse is started, just because it drops the energy and picks it back up and everything kind of flows very smoothly. Oftentimes I notice a lot of people will do arrangement and they'll just have their hi-hats playing throughout the entire beat. You don't want that. You don't want your 808s playing throughout the entire beat. Oftentimes you can. If it sounds good, it is good. But sometimes when you have that, it gets a little repetitive, it gets a little strenuous on the ears, because the hi-hats are very high frequency, 808's a very low frequency, and this could cause some ear fatigue for the listener. You don't really want that most of the time, so it's good to have sections where it drops off and picks back up. It's a good thing to keep in mind, even if it's a small bit. So pretty much I just arranged the whole thing, and here's how it sounds.
Riley, shut your dumb ass up.